All right, everybody, we're looking at doing a market report for the month of October, looking at the housing market in Edmonton and what's been going on in the real estate market here. So I'm going to be using the most recent statistics available from the Realtors Association of Edmonton, which is looking at the September stats. So we're into October now, but we've got all the stats in looking at what happened in September, which can give us some pretty good information on what we could expect moving forward and what's been going on so far. So we're going to look at both the greater Edmonton area and then just the Edmonton market. The greater Edmonton includes a lot of the surrounding communities around Edmonton, whereas the city of Edmonton is just the city of Edmonton. So I've got a few different things that I'll go through here. And if you like this type of content, make sure to like and subscribe so that you never miss another market update video. Okay, so let's start off with the greater Edmonton area. The average selling price in September was $375,000. Which was down 0.4% from last month and down 0.7% from last year. And the median price was sitting at $366,000, which was up 1.7% from last month and up 2.5% from last year. Now, when looking at the average versus median price, I prefer to use the median price a lot of times because the average can be easily skewed by either a lot of lower priced properties selling or a lot of higher priced properties selling, or a mixture of both, or one or the other kind of thing. Whereas the median gives you that midpoint. So I find that it's a little bit more stable and not as easily affected just by what people happen to be purchasing at the time. Now, looking at single family homes, the average price was sitting at $463,000, which was down 1.2% from last month, but up 2.2% from last year. The median was $430,000, which was down 1.1% from last month and up 3.1% from last year. And for condos, the average was sitting at $220,000, which was down 0.2% from last month and down 1.9% from last year. Whereas the median price for condos was sitting at $195,000, which was down 2.5% from last month and down 6.7% from last year. So you can see the condo market, we've still been seeing some drops in the condo market. That's not exactly unusual, but it does look like the condo market is suffering a little bit more right now than the single family home market. Now, looking over at duplex and row houses, the average price was sitting at $376,000, which is actually up 4.3% from last month and up 11.6% from last year. And the median was sitting at $373,000, which was up 5.9% from last month and up 12.9% from last year. So right now, duplexes and row houses are outperforming pretty much everything else in Edmonton. And I'm not particularly surprised by this because I've noticed that that market is quite active. There's not a ton of these available, so there's usually only a handful or whatnot in a specific area that are similar properties. So they tend to be pretty competitive. If you're selling them, you still need to accurately price it at market value, but it'll move relatively quickly since there's just not a ton of them available. And since the interest rates have gone up, I'm noticing a lot more people have lowered their max price. So maybe they're not $450, maybe now they're $350 now. And for a lot of buyers, that moves them from buying a single family home to potentially buying a half duplex, especially if they want something that's built in the last 10 to 15 years. It's pretty difficult to find a detached home once you get into those lower price points. But if you don't like condo fees and you still want to get as close as possible to that single family ownership type of style, then a row house or a half duplex, or what we call residential attached, is kind of the next best thing. So you can avoid the condo fees and still own your own home and get as close to that single family home as possible. So I'm noticing that market's pretty active, and I think a lot of it's influenced just by the fact that there's not nearly as many of them. They're a smaller segment of the market. The interest rates have gone up, so people are more price sensitive, and you still can buy them and avoid condo fees. So I think that's why that market's been doing so great right now. Now, if we look at new listings for the greater Edmonton area, there was 3,140 this month, which was up 1.7% from last month. And so far there's been 32,000 for the year, which is up 3.7% compared to last year. So that still shows there's lots of listings. Last year was a record for listings as well. So the fact that we've actually got more listings so far for the year than we did last year, which broke records, that shows you that there's still a lot of people putting properties on the market. Now, for sales, there was 1,581 sales for the month, which was down 12.2% compared to last month. So you're seeing a pretty significant drop in sales volume going from August to September. Not particularly surprised by that. That's kind of normal to see it drop, and it'll probably continue to drop as we get into the winter months and hit a low sometime in there, and then it'll start to ramp up again next year. So obviously this is also being influenced by interest rates, but it's also a natural seasonal change in the market. Now, year to date, there's been 21,000 sales, which is down 15.7% compared to last year. So starting to fall behind in terms of sales from last year, even though we started super strong earlier in the year. Now, at the end of the month, at the end of September, there were 7,729 active listings on the market. And in terms of high rollers, these are just like the highest sales, just kind of a novelty. Highest single family home that sold was 2,775,000. Highest condo was 810,000, and the highest duplex / row house was 729,000. Now, looking at the days on market, comparing this year to last year, single family homes are now at 44 days on average compared to 38 days last year. Condos are sitting at 56 days for both this year and last year. Duplexes and row houses, 45 days now versus 42 days last year, and the market as a whole sitting at 48 days now versus 44 days last year. Now let's look at the same stats, but this time just for the city of Edmonton. For the city of Edmonton, the average selling price for the whole market was $373,000, which was up 0.8% from last month, but down 1.6% compared to last year. The median was $363,000, which was up 3.6% compared to last month and up 2.8% compared to last year. And the average was $474,000 for single-family homes only, which was down 0.9% from last month and up 1.8% from last year. The median price for single-family homes was $430,000 in Edmonton, which was down 2.1% from last month, but up 2.1% from last year, so it kind of equals out there. And the average for condos was $213,000, which was down 0.5% from last month and down 1.9% from last year. Now, looking over at the median price for condos, it was $190,000, which was a 0.8% increase from last month, but a 2.6% decrease from last year. So you can still see the condos in Edmonton don't seem to be hurting as much as the greater Edmonton area, which includes other areas, but it's still not doing great. Now, the average price for duplexes and row houses was $393,000, which was up 6.7% from last month and up 14.3% from last year. And the median price was sitting at $383,000, which was up 6.1% from last month and up 14.5% from last year. So pretty strong numbers there. Some of that could also be influenced by some bigger or newer units coming on the market and making up a decent portion of those sales. So I definitely wouldn't take those and assume that you're necessarily up that much on value on your duplex from last month. Now, new listings in Edmonton was 2,416, which was up 1.7% from last month, and so far sitting at 25,000 for the year, which is up 4% for the year. Sales were 1,115, which is down 10.3% from last month, with 15,000 sales for the year so far, which is down 14.9%. So relatively similar to the greater Edmonton area, but performing slightly better in terms of sales. Inventory for Edmonton was 6,164 at the end of the month. The high rollers are probably all the same since they're in Edmonton. And the days on market, single family homes were sitting at 46 days this month versus 37 last year. Condos 58 this month versus 57 last year. Duplexes and row houses 46 days this year, 43 days last year. And the market as a whole sitting at 50 days on average versus 45 days last year. Now, let's look over at the home price index. So going back to the greater Edmonton area, the MLS home price index, which is even more accurate than average or median price, it lags a little bit, this indicator, but it is using an approach that makes it a lot more accurate for actual tracking market value. It's not as sensitive to things like people buying a bunch of lower price properties or higher price properties, like what can happen with the average. This is trying to track the value of a property with specific attributes over time and how that changes each month. So the benchmark price, market as a whole in greater Edmonton area, was sitting at $389,000, which was down 2.6% from last month, but up 2.2% from last year. We already looked at the average and medians for the market as a whole, but you can see over here on the right how the benchmark price trend has gone over the course of the year. You can see that things started to go up in January of this year, and we sort of peaked in April, flattened out for a couple months, and now we've been dropping. So we're seeing another significant drop here in the benchmark price. I do feel like this is a little bit behind. It almost feels like it's 1 month behind in a way on what's actually happening in the market. So it looks like a pretty steep decrease, but it felt like that actually came the month before. And it took this indicator a little bit longer to show what was happening to prices before I actually saw it in the market. So it is behind a little bit, but it still kind of shows you that we're sitting at that point where we've lost most of the gains that we made for the year. From a benchmark price perspective, we're pretty much back where we were in February. And if this continues, it looks like we probably will lose all the gains that we got earlier this year. So now looking over at the single family home benchmark price, that was sitting at 440,000, which was down 2.5% from last month and up 2.7% from last year. So you can see we're still up a little bit from the same time last year. And then for the benchmark price for apartments, that was sitting at 186,000, which was down 1% from last month and up 0.1% from last year. Whereas townhouses, the benchmark price was 239,000, which was down 4.7% from last month and up 1.2% from last year. Now, just looking at the same thing for just the city of Edmonton, the benchmark price was 380,000, which is down 2.8% compared to last month, but still up 1.7% for the year. So very similar to the greater Edmonton area, just slightly better in terms of, well, actually, no, it's not better. The year over year is actually not performing as well for the city of Edmonton, according to the benchmark price as a whole. But the benchmark price for single family homes in Edmonton was 444,000, which was down 2.7% from last month, but up 2.1% for the year. Apartments were 181,000, which was down 1.3% for the month and down 0.7% for the year. And townhouses were sitting at 230,000, which was down 5% compared to last month, but up 0.6% for the year. So that wraps it up for the Realtors Association of Edmonton market update. I'll have another more in-depth one where I've got a lot more infographics that I can share for you coming out here within the next week or so. So if you want to make sure you don't miss that, make sure you like and subscribe to this video. If you're looking at buying or selling a home in the Edmonton area, I'd love to help you out. I am a licensed real estate agent with YEGPro Realty here in Edmonton. I service Edmonton and the surrounding communities, including rural and also like Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, Leduc, Spruce Grove, all the surrounding communities around Edmonton. So if you're looking to buy or sell, I definitely recommend booking a call with me. If you go to booktrevornow.com, you can select a time on my calendar, and then I'll call you for a free consultation and strategy call where essentially I'll find out what it is that you're looking at doing, buying or selling, what market areas, what your budget is, that kind of stuff. And then I can give you pretty specific advice on what I think the opportunities are for you and what might make sense for you. So it's usually very valuable for people. There's no stress, no pressure or anything like that. You can just kind of pick my brain and I help you out as best as I can. And if we end up working together sometime in the future, that's fine. And if not, that's fine too. So I hope you'll reach out to me. You can also reach me on my cell at 780-819-5508. Either text me or call me, or like I mentioned, you go to booktrevornow.com. So thanks so much for watching. If you click over here, you can subscribe. And if you click over here, you can watch another video. So I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.